Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Scorpio for September 2015. Check out my website, aspiritualspark.com, where you can see a list of my current offerings, and you can sign up for my free email newsletter and get all the perks that goes along with that. So we've got a wild month, September. We still have Venus in retrograde for part of the time and the shadow for the rest of the time. We have Mercury going into retrograde, and we have 2 eclipses. So we have a lot to talk about, a lot going on, a lot of intermingling energies. When we are trying to understand astrology, it can be so confusing because there's scathing generalizations, there's things that are true in some way, but then they're not true in other ways, and then on top of that, there's other things that flavor what's going on. So it always reminds me very much of cooking and food. In my upbringing, food was a constant, and there was a lot of focus around food, and so I always think of astrology with food and people being like a person pie. These astrology signs are ingredients in a person pie, and we all have all of the signs within us. Most people don't know that, and that was something I was very surprised to find out when I was first studying astrology, that because someone might say, oh, I don't have any of that sign or any of that energy in my chart, and it's not true. We all have all of the signs within us. These are the basic building blocks of people, just like we have certain elements that everyone and everything is made of. There's certain elements just in a different ratio, and that different ratio makes the form of something totally different. So if you change a ratio just by a little bit, it makes a huge difference in what kind of being it is, you know, if it's the difference between a rock and a plant and a human. And within humans, these different ratios that we have are what makes our personalities the way they are. It shows us how energy moves through us. So we have all the ingredients, but just in a different ratio. So also we think about the layering effect, which is where I was going with this. So there's the layer of Venus retrograde energy happening at once. We'll say that that's, you know, like a certain spice, like maybe cardamom, right? And then we have Mercury retrograde, and that's going on at the same time, and maybe that's another spice, you know, and there's that flavor to what's happening. We'll say it's cinnamon. And then we have the eclipses, and that's like the cayenne, which is like, woo, you know, if we thought we were having some intensity from those other things, then the eclipses just come and kind of dwarf those subtle flavors and just like bring in the hotness or whatever extreme flavor in the experience, in the dish. Okay, so Venus being in retrograde has a lot of different effects, so much so that I did a separate video devoted to this. And if you haven't watched this video, or if you have, you might want to listen to it again, because Venus goes direct on September 6th. But the shadow period lasts all the way until October 9th. So the entire month of September and beyond is still very much cloaked with this Venus retrograde energy. And along with that energy come do's and don'ts, things that you should avoid. If you have to absolutely do something, have these certain awarenesses. So if you look up on my YouTube channel, Annie Botticelli, and put in Venus retrograde, you definitely want to check out this video, because Venus rules love, beauty, money, aesthetics, design. And love and money are 2 of the biggest things that people talk and ask about all the time. And these things are focused on with a Venus retrograde, and there's certain things you really need to know. So we have that covering the whole month. Then we also have the introduction of the Mercury retrograde energy. So Mercury retrograde starts on September 17th officially, but the shadow period beforehand started on August 29th. So again, once again, we have all of September covered in Mercury retrograde. Mercury's retrograde from September 17th through October 8th. Then the post-retrograde period lasts until October 24th. And again, this transit is so important that I just made a new updated video, very comprehensive, just talking about Mercury retrograde, what to do, what not to do, what happens if you have to do the thing that you're not supposed to do, what should you do alongside of that to safeguard yourself. Very, very comprehensive, involving traveling and cars and buying devices and cars and things that are definitely going to come up. So search for Mercury retrograde on my channel, because I don't have time to do justice to these transits and still talk about the eclipses, which are just so dominating in this month. So eclipse time happens twice a year. We usually call them the spring eclipses and the fall eclipses, although they don't always officially happen when it's officially spring or fall. Our first eclipse, September 13th, happens before it's officially fall. And then the second one, that's the solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Virgo. Then on September 27th, when it is officially fall, we have the lunar eclipse at 4 degrees of Aries. But it doesn't matter, it always happens around the same time, and it brings this season, eclipse season, brings major changes. And sometimes they're majorly sudden, where something comes in, whoo, out of the blue. I do a write-up every month for my email community, and I titled this month, September, Whoosh, because that is what eclipses are like, just something like whooshes in, and it wasn't there before. And sometimes something whooshes out, and it's gone, and it had been there. And it's very surprising, and it can be very unsettling. The energetic law, energy is neither created nor destroyed, it simply changes form, is very well illustrated at the time of the eclipses, because the lunar eclipse removes some aspect of our lives. It closes a chapter, it slams a door shut, it ends something. Astrologers will usually call or describe eclipses as non-negotiable. The news that they bring is non-negotiable. So all you really can control is how are you going to deal with these things that have come in that are pretty much out of your control and non-negotiable. So the lunar eclipses happen at the full moon. And so they carry the energy, the similar energy of the full moon. We have this ending, this closure, this completion, except it's in triplicate, it's times 3. So it's like having the energy of 3 full moons at one time. And because of that, we feel the energies before much earlier than we would a regular full moon. Often you will start to hear news or have events that are eclipse related up to 6 weeks before the actual event. So in the beginning of August, we can start to feel the energy of the eclipses bringing in news, bringing in the changes from the solar eclipse, and towards the middle of August, we could have started to get news from the lunar eclipses, and then the influence can be much later as well. Usually we call the eclipse cycle influence as being around 6 months. So sometimes you get a piece of news and then it takes about 6 months for the full story to be told. But within that umbrella of 6 months, there's also a bigger story, and the bigger story is based on the length of time that the signs that those eclipses, that eclipse cycle in those certain signs. So this particular eclipse cycle, we're coming to an end. It's the second to last eclipse involving Aries and Libra. The Aries-Libra polarity we've been working with since 2013. Before the 2013 through what will be 2016 Libra-Aries polarity eclipse cycle. The last time this happened was between 2004 and 2006. And the story that was happening then in those years, if you think back, and what's happening now in these years, has to do with this Aries-Libra polarity, which has to do with me versus we. Aries is me and my whole thing, whatever I've got going on personally. And then Libra is we, and it's our stuff, our connection. So people's relationships to self and to others is being radically defined, redefined by this eclipse cycle. And this has been ongoing. So this is the bigger umbrella under which the 6-month fruition period is occurring under. Okay, so things that happen in this eclipse cycle in this fall may take until the spring to really finish off. But if you pay attention, the story could have started long before then, like in 2013. And if you pay close attention, the bigger story could have started back a while ago. What were you doing between 2004 and 2006? What were there breakups? Were there partnerships that were formed? You know, it has very much to do with your individual self and partnerships. So this story of me versus we, and holding your space within relationship, being able to engage with someone in relationship and remembering who you are and not falling into what they are or what you are together. So being able to merge, but also hold your space. This is very much a summary of the story. So we have that going on. And then we also have, as of the spring of 2015, we started the new eclipse cycle, which is the Pisces Virgo one. So this fall showing of these events has both of these energies. And then so Pisces and Virgo is very much about chaos versus form, or chaos versus organization, and formlessness versus form. So this balance of bringing these intuitive, kind of less tangible things into a fruition, and bringing more fluidity to things that were very rigid. That's the bigger picture of what's happening over the next years, and this is going to run into, and actually through most of 2017. The last of the Pisces Virgo eclipses is going to happen in the springish of 2017, but because that has a 6-month fruition period, that energy can last through the end of 2017. So themes that were introduced at the beginning of this year are moving along a further path of fruition and evolution at this eclipse cycle. So we look at all of that with eclipses. Solar eclipses are like new moons in triplicate. They happen on the new moon, and they are like a new moon times 3. So the openings, the beginnings, the shiny new glowing opportunities that would come with a new moon are times 3 with a solar eclipse. So doors open in a big way, to the exact degree to which energy closed in a big way with the lunar eclipse. So we look at all of that. Then we look at the signs or the placements in the houses. And this is where it gets specific to the horoscope sign. So for Scorpio, we're going to look to see where these eclipses are happening in your solar chart. And it's going to be a little bit different depending on whether you're an early degree Scorpio, a middle degree Scorpio, or a late degree Scorpio. So that the new things, the things that are opening up, are going to either happen in the 10th house of career and work and your livelihood and things involving father and father figures, things involving your life purpose, and or the 11th house, which is things involving teams and groups and social things, both on the internet and any internet related projects, forming friendships, being involved with basically teams and groups, and sometimes humanitarian efforts, sometimes also big organizations, new energy opening up with a big organization. For many of you Scorpios, this is going to translate in a major cracking open of your shell. And we know that of all the shells that we have as humans, that Scorpio energy is really some of the toughest shell to crack. It's it's really cool, and it's really amazing when that really strong protective layer around someone that has strong Scorpio energy is cracked open and people get to really see what's in there. So many people dismiss people that have strong Scorpio energy as who knows what they may think, but they get dismissed easily because a lot of times these people are not pushing their way into the forefront or the one pushing themselves out in front of everybody. They're sort of more of a mystery, and their talents are more hidden. And as I've talked about in previous horoscopes, sometimes it takes the merging with other people or someone seeing what you have and partnering with someone to help present you and showcase your tremendous gifts to the world. So this eclipse cycle is going to open up a brand new level of you cracking out of your shell. And that's going to be for all of you, whether you're early, middle, or late degree Scorpios. So you earlier degree placements are going to have this opening pretty strongly in that 11th house. And you middle degree placements are really having a chance of experiencing it in both houses, both the 10th and the 11th. You know, these lines, like I often talk about, these lines between the houses don't really exist. They're not like a major line of delineation. They're a suggestion of a change happening, a transition between the energies of 10th and 11th house in this case. But anything that happens near that line is very much in both places. So middle degree placements are going to have 11th house and 10th house energy being wide open. And then you later degree placements, this is going to be pretty clearly in the 10th house. So, but in any case, Work, we've been talking about work and career stuff for Scorpio for a while because we've had this Jupiter transit that was just like major, and some of you are still experiencing the energy of that, especially late degree placements. And now the eclipse cycle. Now, if you're a person whose work is related to something 11th house, like working with a group, working on a team, working with social media, working on the internet, doing internet related projects, working with an organization, doing humanitarian efforts, if your career, work, and life purpose lies in something that's ruled by 11th house, then they're going to be linked either way, regardless of where your Scorpio placements are. But that's where the energy is opening up. So the energy is closing down towards the bottom of your chart. So again, depending on your degree, is going to be a different place where this energy is closing. All people throughout the world are going to experience the energy of the lunar eclipse in the sign of Aries. So Aries energy has to do with me, has to do with something in your physicality, your physical body. So something ending, something closing there is going to be a global effect. So people are going to be ending habits. People are going to be a little bit less self-focused and more focused on what they're bringing to the world, less wrapped up in their own dramas. And this is a trap for Scorpios that can really be relieved by this eclipse time, is that you're so emotional and get so wrapped up into this emotional spiral. It's very hard for people who don't have a lot of Scorpio energy or who don't have a very strong astrological background to understand the nature of these energies, to understand what happens and where you go when you go to that place where you're not quite there and you're like down in this emotional abyss. That is a trap that limits you for bringing your gifts out into the world, is this emotional trap. But a lot of times that is an addictive response to stress. So the closing up of energy in Aries can be you actually, it's like an energy of growing up a little bit more, you know, and we all are growing up over time and evolving over time. It's no judgment about, you know, people needing to grow up. We're all growing up and evolving in our own way, in our own time that is perfect for us. And this eclipse cycle is going to facilitate that by taking a little bit of some self-indulgence out of some pattern that we have and putting it out into what the greater good is. That's the 11th house. Into what your purpose is in the world. That's the 10th house. So it's very refreshing. It's very exciting that way. Now, specifically for Scorpios, the houses that are going to be affected, for you very early degree Scorpios, so like your birthday is October 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, you know, 27th, and that grouping, even maybe a little bit later, but those first days of the sign, you might have this energy ending in your 6th house. And the 6th house has to do with your job, your daily work routine. There's different places we look at work in the chart. We've got the money that you make from work in the 2nd house. We have the job itself and what you're doing, and kind of in some ways your relationship to the job in the 10th house. But then we have the workday matters, like the things that happen every day and your workplace dramas or your workplace support or just what happens every day. That's in the 6th house. The 6th house is called the mundane schedule, or things that you do every day. So if you go to work every day, then your 6th house is going to be very strongly represented at work. If you're at home every day and you work from home, then your 6th house is going to be your day-to-day things you do at home or at your home office, or if you're somewhere else, that's what it rules. So something is being eclipsed out of your daily routine. For some people that's going to be a pet or an animal. That is going to be eclipsed out in some way. If you have been fostering an animal, the animal might find a perfect home. If you are, you know, there's many other ways that animal energy can leave your life or be affected somehow from the 6th house. Pets are there too because there's something that we take care of every day. That's where they fall into that house. So the 6th house is also the house of health. So some people are going to experience a health crisis, and it's going to serve to further propel them into the bigger picture of their lives. So if you have anything pending in the time before then, it's good to get it checked out. It's also a really good time to do tests. Now, in the retrograde cycle, we have to pay attention to this, that if you do have some testing, there is a chance you could get false results. But moving along the process of seeing what might be wrong or going on within you is important, but just remember that This is an evolution, and it may or may not be a be-all end-all of what you think that you are hearing from certain results, but it is a time to definitely start exploring possibilities as to seeing why you might be having certain symptoms. Most of the Scorpios are going to experience this energy of leaving or something different closing in the 5th house of children. An example of how this could look is a child goes off to school, and it could be that they go off to college, it could be that they go off for that move from kindergarten to 1st grade often goes with it a change in their schedule. And starting in 1st grade, they have a schedule for school that is their schedule for all the grades. And so their presence in the house is not going to be as, they're not going to be as present in the house. So something like that, an ending, a closing, something involving children, closing or chapter closing there. A child could be graduating from college, something like that. And some of you, very late degree placements, are going to experience this actually in your 4th house. When there's an eclipse, a lunar eclipse in the 4th house, it very often means the exiting of something home related or family related. So sometimes it's that a roommate moves out. Sometimes it's that real estate is sold, or that you move from a house, or that someone moves from your house, or something involving family happens, you know, that there's energy that closes somehow with family. So those are the many ways that these energies can manifest. If you would like some assistance in navigating this, I would love to help you. It's very tricky because things that are coming in during this time of the eclipses are very much covered in the retrogrades. So you might not see a lot of the moving forward with the news that comes until the middle or end of October. And remember also that eclipses are not times to initiate activities or initiate anything. It's best to keep, like for September, try to not plan anything. If you can help it, plan very little, because things are going to come in and it's going to change your plans. But at the end of October, when Mercury retrograde is clear, when Venus retrograde is all clear, and the eclipses, the news has pretty much come in, then you'll be able to start to actively do something with what has come in. So if you absolutely have to make a decision during September, then you can't get around it, then you have to make a decision. But if you can at all table it and ask for time to consider and move it to the end of October, at least the middle towards the end of October, to make a decision, you're going to be much better off, because you're still going to be having news coming in and you're not going to be very clear on certain subjects. So that's what's going on. So go to my website, aspiritualspark.com, where you can see more about my current offerings. And definitely check out my Unleash Your Money Magnet webinar. I'm getting wonderful feedback from people who have really been using the tools that I offered there and that we go through. It's a 2-hour webinar that's like solid with all kinds of awesome stuff. People are telling me that amazing things are happening, and I want you to be one of them. So check that out on my website, and definitely sign up for my free email newsletter, which makes you part of my community, which gets you the wonderful perk, among other things, of having a written monthly astrological highlight report the month before, so that you have a written version of some of the things that are happening, which helps you make your plans. So I hope you have a wonderful September. Take care. Bye.